Ladies and gentlemen, warriors of life, let me ask you something. Have you ever been hurt, lied to, betrayed, ghosted? Of course you have. You're human. And maybe someone told you to go no contact, cut them off, delete the number, block the texts, vanish. And hey, that's a powerful strategy. It's clean, it's final. It says, you don't get access to me anymore. But today I want to give you something even more powerful than no contact. Something that won't just cut off the noise, it will turn your pain into power. Are you ready for it? Because here it is. Reclaim your energy, rebuild your identity, rewire your life. Let me explain. No contact is an action, but reclaiming your power is a transformation. When you go no contact, they lose access to you. But when you level up, they lose access to the version of you they once knew. And let me tell you something, that's what really stings. The old you, the one that tolerated the disrespect, the confusion, the crumbs, that version is gone, buried. And in its place, a version of you that doesn't just move on, you evolve. Listen, you don't heal by hiding. You heal by showing up for yourself. No more waiting for closure, no more checking your phone, no more giving them free rent in your head. Here's the strategy, and I want you to burn this into your brain. Stop reacting. Start responding. You don't need to fight. You don't need to explain. You're not in court. You're in control. Channel it, use it. Every tear, fuel. Every sleepless night, momentum. Stack your wins physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually. Start collecting evidence that you are moving forward. Show up in your life like you are the damn CEO. Because you are. Of your energy, of your peace, of your destiny. People think revenge is about proving something to someone else. No. Revenge is becoming someone they never saw coming. No contact is a boundary. Becoming untouchable, that's a revolution. So don't just disappear, rise. Don't just cut them off, cut through the illusion that you ever needed their validation to begin with. You want real power? Don't wait for the apology. Don't wait for the closure. Don't wait for karma. Become the karma. That's the strategy. That's the move. That's the ultimate comeback. Let's go. Reclaim your energy, rebuild your identity, rewire your life. This is not a mantra, it's a method. A method for taking back everything that's been scattered, drained, and handed over, sometimes willingly, often unknowingly, to people and situations that never deserved it. It starts with energy. Your energy is your most valuable currency. You trade it every day, with every conversation, every thought, every emotion you allow to loop in your mind. If you're constantly replaying arguments, obsessing over their next move, checking your phone like it's a slot machine, waiting to pay out validation, you're leaking energy. Every moment spent hoping they'll notice, regret, or return is energy stolen from your own growth, but you can reclaim it. You do that by becoming deliberate. Become hyper-aware of where your attention goes, because your attention is your power. Stop giving free access to people who wouldn't even pay respect. Stop mentally rehearsing past pain. That doesn't make you wiser, it makes you weaker. Wisdom is what you get when you extract the lesson and let go of the story. When you reclaim your energy, you are no longer emotionally available to chaos. You become unavailable to the people who only showed up to feed on your peace. And when they realize you're no longer reacting, no longer chasing, no longer craving the scraps, they either evolve or evaporate. That's the power of reclaiming your energy. Now let's talk about rebuilding your identity. Because when you've been entangled in a toxic connection, you don't just lose the person, you lose parts of yourself. You begin to forget who you were before they came along and made you question your worth. You shrink to fit their comfort zone. You second guess your instincts. You live on edge, trying to manage their moods while ignoring your own. That's not love. That's survival. And survival mode is not your default setting. You were born for more than that. Rebuilding your identity means coming back home to yourself. It means remembering who the hell you were before the pain. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about unbecoming everything they projected. Maybe they called you too much, too emotional, too intense. Good, because your intensity is not a flaw. It's a gift. Rebuilding means taking back your narrative. You're not broken. You're rebuilding. There's a difference. Broken is passive, rebuilding is active. It's intentional. It's you, brick by brick, constructing a version of yourself that's not defined by who hurt you, but by who you choose to become in spite of it. This is where the rewiring begins, because healing isn't just emotional, it's neurological. Your brain has been trained to respond to their absence like a threat. It's been wired for connection with someone who brought chaos. So when they leave, or you go no contact, your nervous system doesn't just relax, it panics. That's not love, that's addiction. You've been conditioned to seek safety in dysfunction. And now it's time to rewire that response. You do it by feeding your mind new patterns, new truths. You stop saying, I miss them, and start saying, I miss the idea of who I thought they were. You stop chasing closure and start chasing clarity. You replace their voice in your head with your own, not the critical, self-doubting voice that they planted. The true one. The one that reminds you that your worth isn't conditional, that you were enough all along. Rewiring your life means you don't just remove the toxic influence. You build something so strong, so rooted, so self-sustaining, that you never tolerate that level of disrespect again. It means your self-worth becomes internal, not borrowed. It means your peace becomes a standard, not a luxury. You create new routines, new rituals, new environments that reflect who you're becoming, not who you were when you settled. You stop waiting to feel motivated and start acting like someone who's already there. Because identity isn't just discovered, it's built through repetition. You wire in new beliefs through new behavior. You speak differently, move differently, think differently. Not to fake it, but to make it real. Because the brain doesn't care if it's real or imagined. It believes what you feed it consistently. So feed it power, feed it truth, feed it the vision of who you are becoming. Stop reacting, start responding. This shift is the difference between emotional chaos and grounded power. When you react, you're handing over the steering wheel of your life to triggers, impulses, and external forces. You're giving away control to someone else's behavior, words, or presence. Reacting is fast, automatic, emotional. It comes from old patterns, often rooted in fear, insecurity, or trauma. It's when someone says something and you lash out, or they ignore you and you spiral. It's when their silence becomes your obsession and their absence becomes your weakness. That is reaction. It's reflex, not choice. When you're stuck in reaction, you become predictable, easily manipulated. People can push a button and get the same response. They ghost you, and suddenly you're chasing. They breadcrumb you, and you grab, like it's a lifeline. They criticize you, and you defend yourself like your worth is on trial. This is what it means to live on the defense. To constantly feel like you have to protect, prove, or persuade. And it's exhausting, because you're not grounded in yourself, you're dancing to someone else's rhythm, even if they're long gone. You're responding to echoes, not reality. But there's another way. You start responding instead of reacting. Responding is conscious. It's intentional, it's slow, it's rooted in clarity, not chaos. When you respond, you take a beat. You breathe. You observe. You choose. You're not trying to win a game. You're not trying to be right. You're trying to stay aligned with who you are and who you want to be. Responding is a skill. It's self-mastery. It's being able to feel the heat rise inside you, but refusing to let it control your next move. To shift from reacting to responding, you have to build space between stimulus and action. That space is called awareness. And awareness is everything. It's where your power lives. When someone says something that once triggered you, you now ask, what is this really about? Is this my wound or theirs? Do I even need to reply? Is silence more powerful here? When you pause, you stop feeding the fire. You stop escalating. You stop giving emotional ammunition to people who don't value your peace. And more importantly, you stop being a slave to your own patterns. Responding also means you're no longer available for games. When you react, you're pulled into drama. When you respond, you set the tone. You take your time. You decide if the conversation's worth having. You decide if their energy even belongs in your space. Responding allows you to walk away, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of strength. Because not everything deserves your words. Not everyone earns your reaction. Silence can be a sentence. Stillness can be a statement. Maturity is knowing when to engage and when to disengage completely. One of the most powerful things you can do in a triggering moment is ask yourself, who do I want to be right now? Not how do I want to feel, because feelings are fleeting, but who do I want to be? That question brings you back to center. It reminds you that you have a choice. You can take a breath. You can hold the message for a day. You can sit in discomfort without lashing out. That's the new discipline. That's the new muscle you build. Not just avoiding reaction, but choosing your response like a leader, like someone who knows their energy is sacred. Responding also demands emotional regulation. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't allow feelings to drive the bus. Anger, sadness, jealousy, these are valid emotions, but they don't make good decision makers. When you respond, you acknowledge what you feel, but you don't hand it the microphone. You speak from clarity, not chaos. You act from alignment, not anxiety. This is how you create emotional safety within yourself. You become someone you can trust. You become steady, consistent, grounded. That kind of energy is magnetic, it's rare, and it's untouchable by people who rely on emotional volatility to stay in control. Every time you choose to respond instead of react, you rewrite your identity. You show your nervous system that you're no longer in survival mode. You teach your mind that safety doesn't come from control, but from composure. You shift from being someone who reacts to external chaos to someone who creates internal peace. And that shift, that space, is where transformation begins. Transmute pain into purpose. That's the move. That's the alchemy. Because pain by itself doesn't build anything. Pain just hurts. Pain is heavy, dark, paralyzing when left unchecked. But when it's used, when it's owned, when it's directed, pain becomes fuel. Pain becomes clarity. It becomes a sharpening tool for your future self. Pain doesn't have to define you, but it absolutely can refine you. That's what transmutation is. It's not pretending the pain didn't happen. It's deciding it won't go to waste. People often try to avoid pain, numb it, bury it, or distract from it. They run from it. They scroll through it. They drink through it. They jump into new connections to forget old wounds. But you can't outrun what lives inside of you. You can only transform it. And that begins with facing it head on, not with shame, not with guilt, but with ownership. You admit what hurt. You name it. You feel it. You hold it. But then you refuse to be consumed by it. You ask it questions. Why did this break me? What did I need that I didn't get? What did I tolerate that violated my values? These questions turn pain into information, and information is power. Once you start asking the right questions, pain becomes a mirror. It reflects back to you the parts of yourself that need healing, boundaries, growth. It reveals where you betrayed your own standards, where you settled, where you stayed silent when you needed to speak. That's not weakness. That's the raw material of transformation. That's how you turn wounds into wisdom. You don't ignore the lessons, you study them. You let them make you sharper, not softer. Stronger, not harder. More compassionate, but less tolerant of nonsense. Transmuting pain also means redirecting your energy. Pain creates pressure. It builds inside you like steam. And you can either let it explode or you can channel it. You can let it leak into your relationships, your body, your mind, or you can harness it into something meaningful. You can write it, build it, move it, speak it. You can take the very thing that broke you and let it build something new in you. People think purpose is some grand calling you find one day. But sometimes purpose is born from your lowest moment. It comes from the thing you survived, the thing you thought would destroy you, but didn't. When you move through pain with purpose, you stop seeing yourself as a victim. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I do with this now? You shift from self-pity to self-empowerment. That doesn't mean denying what happened. It means refusing to let what happened be the final word. It means becoming the author again, taking the pen back, and writing a new chapter, one that doesn't ignore the pain, but uses it as the ink. The people who inspire the most are not the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who felt the fire and forged something from it. They're the ones who chose growth when bitterness was easier. They're the ones who turned their scars into maps for others. That's purpose. Purpose doesn't mean you're glad it happened. It means you're going to make it count. You're going to take what hurt and let it teach you how to heal. And not just for yourself, but for everyone you meet who's still in the dark. When you transmute pain, you start to see yourself differently. You're no longer broken. You're becoming. You're not just someone who got through something. You're someone who used it. That shift is everything. It's what gives pain meaning. Because pain without meaning is just suffering. But pain with direction, that's transformation. That's power. You become someone who can sit in discomfort without losing yourself. Someone who doesn't need closure because they've already found clarity. Someone who doesn't repeat the cycle because they've learned the lesson. Transmutation is internal. It's invisible at first. It happens in the way you think, the way you speak to yourself, the way you carry your story. It happens in your daily choices. You stop playing small. You stop begging for love. You stop performing for acceptance. Because your pain already proves something. You're resilient. And now your purpose will prove something else. You're unstoppable. You don't need to convince anyone. You just need to live it, embody it. Become the version of yourself that the pain was preparing you for. Stack your wins daily, not once in a while, not when the stars align, not when you feel like it, every single day. Because momentum is not built on massive shifts that happen once a year. It's built on consistent, intentional progress that compounds over time. Winning doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. In fact, the most important wins are often quiet, invisible to everyone else, but deeply felt by you. It's the win of getting out of bed when you didn't want to. The win of saying no when your old self would have said yes. The win of choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, discipline over distraction. Stacking wins daily rewires your identity. You start seeing yourself differently because you're proving with action that you are capable, you are consistent, you follow through. Every small win is a deposit in the bank of self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. You don't build confidence by thinking positive thoughts. You build it by doing things you said you'd do, especially when it's hard, especially when it would be easier to break the promise. When you start to stack those wins, even on your worst days, you begin to carry yourself differently. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop letting your emotions dictate your effort. You show up whether you feel like it or not. This doesn't mean perfection, it means progress. It means you set the bar where it challenges you, not crushes you. You define a win that's within your control. If you're grieving, healing, rebuilding, your win today might be getting dressed, might be journaling for 5 minutes, might be not texting that person you promised yourself you'd let go of. Those wins matter. They build emotional muscle. They remind you that you are still in the game, that you haven't given up on yourself. And the more wins you stack, the more momentum you gain. Momentum is everything, because when you're in motion, even slow motion, you break the cycle of stuckness. Stagnation is where self-doubt lives. But forward motion, even tiny steps, builds belief. It tells your brain, we're moving. It shifts you out of victim mode and into agency. And when you start stacking wins, you become addicted to integrity, to that feeling of alignment. It's no longer about impressing anyone. It's about becoming someone you're proud of. It's about earning your own respect every single day. Stacking wins also sharpens your focus. You stop scattering your energy across things that don't move you forward. You stop giving attention to people who drain you. You become obsessed with your own evolution. And that obsession is healthy when it's rooted in purpose, not ego. It becomes your compass, your filter. Does this action lead to a win today? If not, it gets less of your time. You learn to protect your time like your life depends on it, because it does. Every minute wasted in distraction is a minute stolen from your potential. And here's what happens when you stack wins over time. You start to collapse the distance between who you are and who you want to be. You stop feeling like your goals are far away. You realize they're built one choice at a time. You stop fantasizing about change and start living it. The person you're becoming doesn't show up out of nowhere. They emerge through repetition, through a pattern of showing up even when it's inconvenient, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. Stacking wins also silences the noise. When you're in motion, you stop overthinking. You stop obsessing over what they're doing, what they're thinking, why they left, because your focus is no longer outward, it's inward. And that shift changes everything. You start living like someone who has work to do, someone who has a mission, someone who's not looking to be rescued, but is actively building their own rescue plan. You stop needing permission to evolve. You don't need giant leaps, you need consistency. You don't need inspiration, you need execution. One win, then another, then another. Stack enough and your self-premiere shifts. You become someone who finishes what they start. Someone who doesn't break promises to themselves. Someone who is no longer ruled by emotion but led by vision. And that's the version of you that creates real transformation. Not the one waiting for motivation, but the one who understands that momentum is self-generated. That showing up daily is the strategy. That stacking small wins is the secret to building a life you're proud to live. Become the karma, not the victim. That is the mindset shift that separates those who stay stuck from those who rise. Because playing the victim may feel justified, even comforting at times, but it keeps you small. It keeps you waiting for them to apologize, for them to change, for justice, for closure, for some cosmic payback that never quite arrives. And while you're waiting, wasting your power, your potential, your presence. Becoming the karma means taking back the role of creator in your life. It means you stop hoping the universe handles it, and you start becoming the evidence that you didn't need them to fall for you to rise. Karma isn't revenge. Karma is alignment. It's not about punishing others. It's about becoming so deeply aligned with who you're meant to be that their actions no longer define your identity. You stop checking to see if they're suffering. You stop wondering if they miss you. You stop living in reaction to the past, because the real flex is evolution. The real answer to betrayal is success. Not just surface success, not just the kind that looks good on a feed, but deep, quiet, undeniable, the kind that feels like freedom, the kind that feels like peace, the kind that can't be faked and doesn't need to be proven. Becoming the karma means becoming the person who no longer matches the frequency of the chaos you walked away from. You elevate, not out of spite, but out of truth. You don't need to tear anyone down. You don't need to expose them. You simply rise, and let your rise be the revelation. You live so fully, so freely, so focused that their memory fades into irrelevance. Because when you become the karma, you stop trying to win an old story. You start writing a new one, a story where you are no longer reacting to who hurt you, but responding to who you are becoming. This means responsibility, not blame. There's a difference. Responsibility says, this happened, and now I decide what I do with it. Blame says, this happened, and I'm stuck until someone else makes it right. Karma energy doesn't wait. It moves, it builds, it heals, it transforms. It uses everything that tried to break you as fuel. The pain, the silence, the abandonment, all of it becomes material for your evolution. You stop needing them to see your worth. You start living in a way that makes your worth non-negotiable. You set new standards. You protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. When you stop being the victim, you stop needing closure from the person who caused the wound. You give yourself closure by giving yourself a future. A future not anchored to what happened, but to what you're choosing. You don't pretend it didn't hurt. You just refuse to let it define you. You stop repeating the story that keeps you powerless. You start speaking a story that reclaims your strength. You no longer identify with the version of you that tolerated dysfunction. You start showing up as the version that commands respect from others and from yourself. Becoming the karma means you become the person they'll never have access to again. Not because you're bitter, but because you've elevated beyond their reach. You don't go back. You don't lower your frequency to prove a point. You rise. And in doing so, you make the past irrelevant. You start creating new evidence. Evidence that you are not fragile. You are not broken. You are not needy. You are powerful. You are precise. You are whole. And that wholeness doesn't come from getting even. It comes from getting better. You stop chasing apologies. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop playing small so others can feel comfortable. You start leading with vision, not validation. And in that space, you begin to feel something new. A quiet, steady power. A confidence that doesn't come from ego, but from integrity. You know who you are now. You know what you allow, what you walk away from, what you will never again settle for. That is karma in human form. You don't need the world to know your side. You just need to know your truth. You become someone who is no longer triggered by the past because you've outgrown the frequency that once held you hostage. You embody peace, not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer ruled by chaos. You hold your ground, not to prove strength, but because you no longer abandon yourself for anyone. Becoming the karma means your life becomes the message. Not your words, not your posts, your presence. Your energy speaks before you do. It tells the story of someone who transmuted pain into power, silence into clarity, endings into beginnings. And once you become that person, nothing and no one can take it away from you.